Lightbearer, the most beautiful part of your story is the chapter you have been wishing had never been written, the season you would erase if you could, the scar you cover when anyone gets close enough to notice. I know that sounds wrong. I know everything inside you resists that idea, because you have spent so long treating that chapter as damage, as evidence that something went permanently wrong, as the part of your history that disqualifies you from the kind of wholeness other people seem to carry so easily. But here's the truth that will change everything once you let it settle into the deepest part of your understanding. The very place where you broke is exactly where the strongest light is about to come through. The crack you hide is not a flaw in my design. It is the opening I have been preparing, the precise location where restoration will enter with a force and a beauty that an unbroken surface could never have received. The restoration I am speaking about is not a patch job. This is not the kind of love that takes broken things and hides them behind something prettier, hoping no one notices the damage underneath. I do not work that way. My love does not cover wounds, it heals them. My love does not paper over the cracks, it fills them, renews them, transforms them until they become the most beautiful part of the story. When I restore something that was broken, it comes back stronger than it was before it fell, more radiant than it was before the damage, more meaningful, more precious, more alive than anything you could have held on to in its original form. And the process that produced that transformation, as costly as it felt, becomes part of the beauty, rather than a shadow over it. You have been carrying something heavy for a long time, longer perhaps than you have admitted to yourself. There is a place in your heart where you stopped expecting things to get better. A quiet corner where hope set down its bags and whispered that it was tired, that maybe this was simply how things were going to be. You have been functional. You have kept moving. You have shown up for your days, done what needed to be done, smiled when it was required. But deep inside, beneath the surface of all that determined living, there has been a wound that is not fully closed. A relationship that fractured and never quite came back together the way it once was. A dream you buried because the waiting became too painful to sustain. A trust that was broken, and whose absence left a hollow space where confidence used to live. You have been managing these things, not quite talking about them, carrying them with a certain practiced stoicism that the people around you may not even be aware of, and today I want to speak into all of it. I want you to know that I have seen every single layer of that. My eyes are upon you with a tenderness that language cannot fully carry. I watched you the day the thing broke. I was present for every conversation that went wrong, every silence that grew too heavy to bear, every moment when what you had hoped for slipped further out of reach. I was not absent. I was not distant. I was not watching from somewhere removed, cataloging your failures and waiting for a better candidate to bless. I was with you the way a father is present when his child takes a hard fall, the way a mother stays close when illness comes in the night. Present, attentive, fully engaged with the specific geography of your specific pain, grieving alongside you while simultaneously knowing, with an absolute certainty that transcends the limits of what you could see, that this was not the end of your story. And here is what I want to give you in this moment, in this conversation between your heart and mine. I want to give you something more durable than a feeling, more substantial than a passing comfort, something that will still be in your hands tomorrow and next season and in all the seasons that follow. I want to give you understanding, real understanding, the kind that changes the way you see everything. Understanding of a love so relentless, so thorough, so alive with intention, that when it arrives at a broken thing, the broken thing cannot stay broken. When my love touches a shattered relationship, the very nature of that love begins to work restoration. When my love reaches a dream that was abandoned in a drawer somewhere, the dream stirs. When my love finds a person who has given up on themselves, that person slowly, tenderly, begins to remember who they are. This is the love I am offering you, not abstractly, not as a theological concept to file away in the part of your mind that holds information without applying it. I am offering it to you right now, in the specific geography of your actual life, with its real textures and real wounds and real history. This love is for you, the you that is reading this right now, the The you that has been carrying the heaviness. The you that has been hoping quietly that something could change while also fearing that it might not. This love is aimed at that version of you. It is not waiting for you to get better before it arrives. It has already arrived. It is already here. The question is simply whether you are willing to receive it. Let me take you somewhere for a moment. Close the internal noise and come with me back to a place you know well. A place you have visited many times in your memory with a mixture of longing and pain. Think about what it felt like before something broke, before the distance crept in, before the disappointment settled, before the loss arrived. There was something whole there. Something you loved, something that mattered, something that represented life to you in a way that filled your chest with warmth just by thinking about it. You remember what it felt like to have that, the quality of it, the specific texture of hope that lived in it, the sense of rightness, of things being as they were meant to be. You remember how it felt to go to sleep in a season when that thing was intact, and how different it felt to go to sleep in the season after it broke. And you remember with painful clarity the moment or the slow erosion or the sudden rupture that changed everything. The conversation you replay, the silence you cannot stop hearing, the day that marked the before and the after of a significant chapter of your life, the specific loss of something you loved. Now hear me carefully. That memory of wholeness you are holding, that sense of what it felt like before the breaking, that is not a monument to what is permanently gone. That memory is a prophecy of what is coming back. I allowed you to know what goodness felt like so that you would recognize its return when it arrives. I allowed you to love deeply so that you would understand the magnitude of what I am restoring. The ache you feel when you remember is not cruelty, it is accuracy. Your heart knows what it was made for, and it is not forgotten, and it will not settle permanently for less. The very fact that the memory still carries feeling, that it still moves something in you, is evidence that the love at the center of it was real. And real love does not dissolve. It waits for the conditions that will allow its return. My love is the most powerful force in existence. That is not a spiritual platitude handed down through tradition without examination. It is a structural reality about the universe I made. Before there was matter, before the stars were hung in their places, before the deep waters were gathered and the dry land appeared, before any of the created order existed in its current form, there was love. My love was the original creative force. It is the substance from which everything good was made, which means that when my love is applied to something broken, it is applying the original creative power to a work of restoration. And what my love creates, it creates beautifully, completely, with a thoroughness that goes all the way down to the root, that does not stop at the surface presentation, but continues until the deepest foundations of the thing are sound. Think for a moment about what you know of how things grow. A tree that has survived a storm, a genuinely severe storm that bent it and stripped leaves from it and tested the depth of its root system, as a root system that is deeper and more complex after the storm than it was before. The wound in the wood heals over, yes, but beneath that healed surface, the tree has responded to the testing by growing stronger, sending roots deeper, reinforcing the connections that were put under pressure. The storm that seemed designed to destroy it actually produced a version of the tree more capable of standing than the one that stood before the wind came. The rings in the wood of that tree, if you were to look at them, would show the year of the storm clearly, not as a mark of damage, as a mark of transformation, as the year when the tree became something it was not before. This is exactly, precisely, what I am doing in you. The storms you have been through are not the final sentence of your story. They are the rings in the wood that mark the years of your deepening. And the tree that is standing in the wake of those storms is more rooted, more resilient, more genuinely capable of offering shade and shelter to the people around it than the tree that existed before the wind came. The things that broke in your life, the relationships that cracked under pressure, the dreams that fell apart, the trust that was violated, the faith that wavered, the person you thought you were before life complicated that image, all of these things are being processed through a love so thorough and so intelligent that it knows exactly where to apply itself. My love does not waste the pain you have been through. It uses it. It takes the raw material of your suffering and, with a craftsman's precision, transforms it into the foundation for something that could not have been built any other way. Could not have been built quite as well any other way. Could not have been built at all any other way. The specific beauty of what your life is becoming requires the specific suffering of what your life has been, not as a matter of punishment, but as a matter of construction. The depth requires the cost. The home that love builds is not made of perfect circumstances. The house that stands on an unshakable foundation is not the house that was never tested. It is the house that was tested, that showed its vulnerabilities, that had to be rebuilt and reinforced, and that now stands with a history of having survived what it survived. The home that love builds is made of people who have been broken and restored, of relationships that have been tested and have survived, of trust that was shattered and painstakingly rebuilt into something that now has a history of durability written into every joint and every wall. The table in this home is set with a kind of abundance that only people who have known real hunger can fully appreciate. The warmth in this home is the warmth of fires that were kept burning through storms that should have extinguished them. The laughter in this home has a depth to it that superficial comfort can never produce, because it comes from people who know what it cost to arrive at this table and who do not take its abundance lightly. The belonging in this home is fierce and grateful and specific in a way that belonging that was never threatened cannot be. This is the home I am building for your life, not the pristine, untouched home of someone who has never suffered. That kind of home is beautiful but fragile. What I am building has been tested. Every joint has been stressed. Every wall has proven itself. The love that dwells in this home has earned its permanence through the very fact that it stayed present when it would have been easy to leave. Through the fact that when the fire was at its worst, love remained. When the distance was at its greatest, love kept working. When the darkness was most complete, love kept its candle burning. And so, I want you to let something shift in the way you are holding all of this. Instead of looking at the broken places in your life as evidence of failure, as proof that something is permanently wrong with you or with the things you loved, I want you to begin to see them differently. Those broken places are the precise locations where my love is most actively working. The cracks are the entry points. The shattered places are where the restoration is most concentrated. The wounds are the addresses where the healer is specifically present. You are not living in the ruins of what used to be. You are living in the construction site of what is becoming. And the construction is real, and it is happening, and it is being overseen by the most capable builder in the universe. The love that restores is not weak. I need you to hold that truth firmly, because some of you have been given a distorted image of love as something soft and passive, something that tolerates everything and changes nothing, something that smiles kindly at damage and says soothing things while nothing actually shifts. That is not what I am. My love is the strongest power in existence. It is a love that looked at your mess and did not flinch. A love that knows exactly what you did in your darkest moments and does not withdraw. A love that was acquainted with every version of your failure before you failed and chose you anyway, completely, without reservation, for all of the days of your life and beyond them. This love came to a broken world and did not manage it from a distance. It entered. It took on the weight of the breaking personally. It stepped into the fullness of human vulnerability and limitation, into suffering and loss and rejection and death itself, and absorbed the full force of damage and destruction and did not simply survive it, it used it. It transformed the most catastrophic breaking in history into the mechanism of the most comprehensive restoration ever accomplished. That is the love that is at work in your life right now. The same love that would not stay buried. The same love that turned grief into uncontainable joy on that first morning when the stone was rolled away and the grave was empty. That love is not done with its work. It has never stopped working. And it is working, specifically and particularly, in the broken places of your one, specific, unrepeatable life. You are worthy of this. That is the other thing I need to tell you, and I need you to really hear it, not to receive it politely, and then argue with it in the private chambers of your mind 5 minutes later. You are worthy of being restored. Not because you have been perfect, not because your track record justifies special treatment, not because you managed to hold yourself together through the breaking without showing any signs of weakness. You are worthy of restoration because you are mine. That is the entire basis of it. You were made by love, for love, and love does not abandon what it made. The failures are real. I am not interested in pretending they are not. The choices you made that cost you, the moments when you acted out of fear or pain or selfishness and damaged something good, the times you said things that cannot be unsaid and did things that cannot be undone, the seasons when you walked away from what mattered and then had to live with what that cost. I see all of it with complete clarity. My eyes are upon you with a gaze that misses nothing. And that same gaze, that completely honest, fully informed gaze, has assessed everything it sees with the assessment of love, not the assessment of a judge counting your failures. The assessment of a father who knows his child's entire story and loves the child, the whole child, the child at their worst and at their best, without that love ever dimming. My forgiveness is not reluctant. It does not come with a long list of conditions you must first satisfy, or a waiting period determined by the severity of what was done, or a probationary phase during which you must prove you have changed. When you come to me, when you turn toward me with the honest weight of your failure and say simply that you are here and you need what only I can give, the forgiveness is already there, not arriving, not being prepared, already present, already waiting for you, already extended. It was purchased at a cost you did not pay, and it is available to you at the cost of simply receiving it, which means your dignity, the sense of who you truly are before me, does not depend on your performance. It depends on my provision, and my provision is perfect and permanent and non-negotiable. Walk with me deeper into this, because the restoration I am working in you is not just about removing guilt or fixing what was broken on the surface. It goes deeper than the surface. It goes deeper than the first layer beneath the surface. The love that restores is reaching places in you that even you have not fully examined. Places where old wounds from long ago shaped the way you see yourself and the world. Places where old disappointments calcified into beliefs you have been living by without realizing it. Places where you formed conclusions about what is possible for you, what you deserve, what you can trust, that were based on experiences that were real, but whose conclusions were wrong. There are rooms in the house of your soul that you have kept locked for a very long time, not out of wickedness, but out of self-protection, not because you wanted to keep love out, but because you could not risk being hurt again in the specific way you were hurt before. And my love is gentle enough to wait outside those doors as long as necessary, and strong enough to heal whatever is inside when you finally open them. There is a concept that runs through the deep structure of creation that most people have encountered, but few have fully sat with and really considered. The concept of refinement, of purification, not by removal, but by transformation. The ancients who worked with precious metals understood something about this that modern life has largely forgotten. When you take raw ore from the earth, it is not particularly impressive in its unprocessed state. It does not shine. It does not catch the light. It is heavy and dull and full of impurities that diminish its value and obscure its true character. If you looked at that raw ore without knowing what was inside it, you might reasonably dismiss it as unremarkable, as just another rock pulled from the ground. But put that same ore into a furnace, into sustained and intense heat, and something begins to happen that cannot happen any other way, and cannot be rushed and cannot be shortcutted. The impurities rise to the surface. The dross separates from the metal. The things that do not belong are drawn out of what does belong. And what remains, what the heat reveals after it has done its work completely, is something of extraordinary beauty and genuine worth. Something that catches light and gives it back with interest. Something that was always there, always present, always real, hidden inside the raw material, waiting for the process that would bring it fully into the world. This is not a comfortable metaphor when you apply it to your own life. I want to be honest with you about that. The furnace is genuinely hot. The process of refinement is not pleasant while it is happening. The ore does not enjoy being placed in the fire, and if you ask the ore, in the middle of the process, what was happening and why, it would have no satisfying answer. It would only know the heat and the discomfort and the loss of its familiar shape. Only from outside the furnace, from the perspective of the craftsman watching over it, is the purpose of the fire visible. Only from that vantage point does the heat make sense as something other than cruelty. The same substance that endures the fire and the one that avoids the fire are fundamentally different in their final form. One is raw, one is refined. One obscures its own beauty, one reveals it. One carries impurities mixed into its character that diminish everything it could be, and one has had those impurities drawn out through a process that was difficult, but that was also the most loving thing that could have happened to it. And the goldsmith does not place the ore in the fire to destroy it. He places it there because he knows what is inside it. He has a vision of what it will become. He knows what the heat will reveal. He is watching the entire time, not delegating the work to someone else, not stepping away to attend to other matters, adjusting the temperature, monitoring the process with constant attention, waiting for the moment when he can see his own reflection in the surface. And that moment, the moment when the metal is pure enough that the craftsman sees himself looking back from it, is the moment the process is complete. You have been in a process. This is not a metaphor being imposed on your experience from outside. This is a description of what has actually been happening. The seasons you have walked through that felt like loss, that felt like fire, that stripped away things you held on to and left you standing in the aftermath with less than you started with. Those seasons were not punishments. They were not evidence that I had forgotten you, or turned against you, or that your situation had slipped through the cracks of my attention. They were the furnace, and they were overseen with constant, expert care. And you are more valuable than gold. The process you have been in has been doing exactly what furnaces are designed to do. It has been removing what was obscuring your true nature. It has been revealing what was always inside you. The strength that only pressure discloses, the faith that only testing proves, the capacity for love that only loss fully awakens, the depth that only difficulty produces. The most beautiful people in the world, the ones who carry genuine warmth rather than performed warmth, the ones whose comfort actually reaches other people rather than bouncing off the surface of their pain, the ones whose presence in a room makes the room feel more hopeful simply by their being in it. These are not people who were born with special gifts. They are people who have been through something and come out the other side knowing in their bones that love held them through it. Not theoretically, not as a doctrine, as a lived experience. They know what it is to have been at the bottom and to have found that the bottom has a floor, and that the floor is solid, and that what holds it is not their own strength but mine. They carry a quality that cannot be manufactured, cannot be performed, cannot be learned in comfortable circumstances. It is the quality of someone who has been refined, someone the fire has passed through without destroying, someone who has discovered, through the most demanding kind of experiment, that the love I speak of is real. That is what I am producing in you. Not a version of you that managed to stay comfortable. Not a version of you that accumulated the right credentials or achieved the right level of visible success. A version of you that carries something in your chest that is genuinely yours, forged through real experience, that no one can take and no circumstance can remove. And I want you to understand the theological heart of this, the deep reason behind the whole project of your restoration. I did not make you to remain untested. I did not place you in a world with real stakes and real consequences, because I wanted you to live at the surface of things, gliding through the years without anything ever challenging the depth of what you believed or the reality of what you claimed to trust. I made you for depth. I made you for a kind of love that is muscular and enduring and capable of standing in the wind without losing its roots. And the only way to develop that kind of love, in you and through you, and ultimately through your life to the people around you, is through the process you have been in. Every wound that heals properly, that goes through the full process of acknowledgement and grief and genuine recovery, makes a person more capable of authentic compassion. not the compassion of someone who has read about suffering, the compassion of someone who has lived inside it and knows its specific weight from the inside. Every broken relationship that is restored makes the people in it more careful and more appreciative and more attentive to what they almost lost, and more committed to never again taking for granted what was once taken for granted. Every dream that falls apart and is rebuilt with the wisdom of what the first version taught contains, in its rebuilt form, a kind of intentionality and resilience that the original version never had, because the original version was built on hope alone, and this new version is built on hope plus the knowledge of what it costs to lose something and the determination to steward more carefully what has been given back. The rebuilt thing is not a lesser version of the original. This is the important thing to hear, the thing that goes against the way most people think about failure and recovery. The rebuilt thing is a deeper version, a wiser version, a version that has a history the original lacked, a version that knows its own value in a way that things which have never been broken cannot know. The relationship that survived the breaking and was restored has something in it, a specific quality of tested love that it did not have when it was untested. The person who came through the fire and was not destroyed has something in them, a specific quality of proven character that the person who never entered the furnace has not yet developed. Not better in theory, better in the way that is most real, more solid, more genuinely capable, more deeply rooted. This is why I say to you with absolute confidence that your life will be restored better than before. When I say better, I mean something specific. Not better in the sense of simply more comfortable or more convenient or more free from difficulty. Better in the sense that matters most to me when I look at the lives I have made and the people I love. Richer in meaning, more saturated with genuine love, more capable of touching other lives because of what it has touched and survived, more anchored in the things that are actually real and permanent, rather than the things that felt important but turned out to be fragile. When people look at what your life becomes on the other side of this process, they will not see someone who was lucky enough to avoid difficulty. They will see someone who went through it and was not destroyed. And that witness, the visible reality of a life that was broken and restored by love, is one of the most powerful things that can exist in the world. There is something I want to address directly, because it sits at the center of many people's hesitation around the idea of restoration. The question of whether they deserve it, whether the things that broke deserve to be rebuilt, whether the love that was damaged is worth the effort of repair. And underneath that question is usually another, quieter question that is harder to say out loud: whether they themselves are worth it, whether they are the kind of person that restoration happens to, or whether they are the kind that simply has to accept what remains and make the best of it. Let me answer that question plainly and without qualification. My love is not distributed based on a worthiness assessment. I do not run calculations of what people deserve and then allocate restoration accordingly, giving more to the more deserving and less to the less deserving, withholding it entirely from the ones who have crossed whatever threshold of unworthiness triggers a final judgment. If I worked that way, no one would qualify. The bar for deserving my love is a bar that no human being has ever cleared and no human being will ever clear, because my love is not a reward for performance. It is a gift that flows from my nature. I love because that is who I am, not because of who you are or what you have done or what you are currently doing or what you will do tomorrow. The moment you decided you were not worth restoring was a moment I gently, firmly, and persistently disagreed with. The story you have been telling yourself about the permanence of your damage, the quiet internal narrative that says things like "this is just how I am now," or "that ship has sailed," or "some things cannot be undone, and this is one of them." That story is not true. And every day that my love continues to work in the unseen places of your life is another sentence written in contradiction of it. You do not write the final word on your own worth. I do. And I wrote that word when I formed you and breathed life into you. It has never been revised. It will never be revised. Now let us go even deeper into this, because this restoration that I'm speaking about is not only personal, it is relational, it is communal. It reaches not only the interior landscape of your individual heart, but the landscape of your connections to other people. the shared spaces where your life meets other lives, and where some of the most significant wounding in your story has taken place. Relationships are the primary location of human life. This is not a statement that requires argument. You know it from your own experience. Not careers, not achievements, not possessions, not the accumulation of anything. Relationships. The people you love and the people who love you, the quality of connection and the experience of disconnection, the way those loves have developed over time, and in some cases been damaged, the history of reaching out and being received well or not, these things form the central content of what it means to be alive. And some of the most profound pain most people carry is not about what happened to them in solitude. It is about what happened in relationship. Words said by someone whose words mattered deeply. Trust placed in someone who handled it carelessly. Love given to someone who did not know how to receive it well, and whose poor receiving of it left a mark. Walls built in the aftermath of those experiences. Walls that protected against further hurt, but also kept out the very connection that was still needed. And underneath those walls, often, the original longing has not dissolved. It has simply gone quiet. Learn to wait. Stopped expecting to be heard. My love has something specific to say about those broken relational places. And it is this: the relationships that matter most to you have not been abandoned by me. I have been present in every difficult conversation, in every silence that grew too heavy, in every misunderstanding that calcified into distance. My love has been working in the space between you and the people you have been disconnected from, working in the hearts of people you thought you had permanently lost, working in your own heart to soften places that hardened for understandable reasons, but that need to soften now. My love has been speaking into both sides of those silences, quietly, persistently, with the kind of patience that does not measure its own progress because it is not working on a human timetable. Restoration in relationships does not always mean that every broken relationship returns to exactly what it once was. Some relationships change when they are restored. They become different, sometimes deeper, sometimes more boundaried, sometimes expressed in new forms, always more honest than before. What I restore is not necessarily the exact form the relationship wore before the damage came. What I restore is the love at the center of it, the genuine care, the real bond, the thing that mattered between those people before the damage arrived. That can be healed, that can be renewed, not always in the same shape it wore before the breaking, but genuinely, truly, substantially restored in the way that actually matters, which is in the love that was real, and that does not disappear simply because circumstances became complicated. And some of you have already begun to see small signs of this. A conversation that happened after months of silence. A message you did not expect to receive. A moment of unexpected warmth where there had been coldness. A person who surprised you by reaching back when you had stopped expecting them to. A shift in your own heart towards someone you had closed off. A softening that you did not choose but that arrived quietly one ordinary day and changed the temperature of something you thought was permanently frozen. These small signs are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are the first visible evidence of what has been happening invisibly in the space of my love's consistent, patient, highly skilled work. Do not dismiss them because they seem small. Small things that are genuinely new carry more weight than large things that are simply familiar. A single green shoot coming up through hard soil after a long cold season is not a small thing. It is the announcement of everything that is coming. It is the ground doing what the ground was always capable of doing, saying what the ground has been waiting to say. Think about what it means to say that abandoned dreams can return. Not as a platitude, as a literal truth about the architecture of hope and the nature of calling. When you placed a dream in a drawer because the cost of hope had become too high to continue paying, that dream did not cease to be real. It became dormant, like a seed in dry soil that has not yet been reached by water. The dream that once drove you, the vision of what your life could be, the thing that made you feel most fully alive when you were moving toward it, the sense of rightness you felt when you were working in the direction of that calling, That thing does not disappear when you stop believing in it. It waits. And the love that planted that dream in you in the first place has not forgotten where it is. My love knows every drawer you have ever locked. My love knows every place where something precious was put away for safekeeping or out of grief. And my love is opening those drawers now, one by one, breathing life back into what was placed there, asking the question that every dormant thing needs to hear. Are you ready to live again? The life you were made for has not been canceled. Your purpose has not been revoked because you had a difficult season, or because you made choices you regret, or because the road took longer and harder turns than you expected. The contribution you were designed to make to the world, the lives you were meant to touch, the specific form of beauty that only you can bring into existence, none of that was dissolved by what you went through. The dream is still in the drawer, and I am asking you to open the drawer. There is something specific about how my love works in the terrain of forgiveness that deserves careful attention, because forgiveness sits at the heart of all restoration. Without forgiveness, relationships remain frozen at the point of their wounding, unable to move forward, unable to breathe, able only to rehearse the original injury. Without forgiveness, people remain defined by their worst moments, trapped in an identity built from the rubble of what they did, rather than the fullness of who they are. Without forgiveness, the future is held hostage to the past in a way that prevents any new life from taking hold. And my love, the love that restores all things, is by its very nature a forgiving love. Not a love that pretends the harm did not happen. Not a love that minimizes the real weight of real wrongs done by real people. But a love that, having fully acknowledged the weight of what was done, having sat with the honest reality of the cost, chooses to release the debt, chooses to step across the distance that the wound created, chooses to reopen the relationship rather than keeping it permanently shuttered by the injury. This is the love that was shown to you before you knew to ask for it. It absorbed everything you had done and everything you would do, and it did not reassess its commitment to you on the basis of what it found. There was no limit discovered somewhere in the accounting, no point at which the total exceeded what the love could cover. The forgiveness extended to you is complete, final, and non-negotiable, already applied, already active, already the ground of your standing before me. And the same love that forgave you completely is the love that is teaching your own heart to extend something similar to the people who have wounded you. Not because they deserve it, not as a reward for their growth or their apology or their adequate expression of remorse, but because forgiveness is the doorway to your own freedom, and I want you free. Can I ask you something? Not to put you on the spot, not to make you feel accountable to an answer you have to get right, but genuinely, between us, in the space where honesty is safe and the pressure of performance is absent. What would your life look like if you actually believed, not as a doctrine filed away in the back of your mind, not as a hope you manage carefully because hoping too hard has cost you before, but if you actually lived from a place of knowing that everything broken in your life could be made whole? Not might be under optimal conditions, with the right combination of circumstances and your own best effort. Could be, will be, is in the process of being made whole right now, even in this very conversation. What would you do differently today if you inhabited that truth fully? How would you hold the relationships that are currently strained, the ones you have half abandoned in your heart because the prospect of hoping for them again is too painful? The ones where you go through the motions of connection while holding the actual substance of yourself back as a form of self-protection. How would you approach the dreams that have been gathering dust in the drawers you locked some time ago? How would you look at yourself in the mirror differently? How would you hold the failures you carry? How would you feel when you got up and faced a new day? I ask because the answer to those questions reveals something important about the gap between where you are and where I am calling you. And that gap is not a condemnation. It is not evidence that you have failed to grasp something you should have grasped by now. It is an invitation. The distance between the life you are living from a place of diminished hope and the life you were made to inhabit is not a measure of your failure. It is a measure of how much further love has to carry you. And love is not tired of the journey. Love does not get to a certain point in the carrying and decide to put you down and let you walk the rest on your own. Love carried you all the way here, and it will carry you all the way there. What is the thing you stopped praying for? What did you quietly take off the list at some point? Not with a dramatic declaration, but with the slow withdrawal of someone who has learned to manage disappointment by lowering expectations. Was it a person? Was it a situation in your family that you have slowly accepted as simply how things are? Was it something about your own healing? A pattern you tried to break across many seasons and many attempts? A wound that kept reopening? Something about yourself that you have started to think of as a permanent feature of who you are, rather than a temporary condition being addressed? Was it something you wanted to build with your life? A sense of purpose you felt strongly about once? A direction that seemed clear before circumstances bent the road in ways you did not expect? Tell me. I already know. But tell me anyway. Because the act of bringing it back into the conversation between your heart and mine is itself a form of faith. The act of saying, out loud or in the private quietness of your own honest heart, here is the thing I stopped believing you would do. Here is what I took off the list. Here is what I filed under things I just have to accept. That act of honesty is actually the beginning of the restoration. Not because I was waiting for the right words before I would begin. Because you needed to feel the weight of it honestly. To stop managing your own disappointment from a careful distance. To come back to the rawness of the thing and let my love meet it there. Do you know what a table means in the culture and deep story of my people? A table is not furniture. A table is a declaration. When you invite someone to your table, you are making a statement about their place in your world that goes deeper than words. The table is where families eat together. It is where reconciliation happens after conflict, where the physical act of sharing food alongside someone signals something about the state of the relationship that cannot be faked. The table is where belonging is expressed through the simple, profound act of shared bread. When you eat with someone, you are saying something about them. You are saying they are welcome in your space, that their presence is desired, that there is a place for them at the center of your daily life. When I speak of preparing a table for you, I am not speaking abstractly about reward for good behavior. I am speaking about a belonging so fundamental, so prior to your performance, so unaffected by your history, that even in the presence of everything that threatens you, even in the environment of your greatest difficulties and your most visible failures, the table is set. The place is marked with your name. The food is prepared specifically for you. You are expected. You are wanted. You are home. The table I have set for your life has been set since before you came to sit at it. Your place was not earned after your arrival or conditionally assigned based on your ongoing performance. It was waiting for you before you arrived, before you had done anything at all, before you could do anything at all, prepared by a love that made its decision about you before you existed. This is the quality of the love that is restoring you. It is a love that preceded your existence, that prepared a place for you before you were born, that chose you not on the basis of anything you would do, but on the basis of something I already knew. I knew you. I knew the whole arc of your life, every chapter, every beautiful moment, every terrible one, every turning point, every low place, every unexpected grace, and I set the table, and the table is still set. Everything that has happened, everything you regret, everything that cost you, none of it has changed the invitation or removed the place setting. What does the word heal mean to you when you hear me say it? Because there are different levels of what healing can mean, and I want you to know which one I am speaking of. There is a level of healing that is essentially management. You manage the wound well enough that it does not actively bleed anymore. You learn to function alongside the pain. You develop workarounds. You become skilled at not touching the places that hurt, at organizing your life so that the wound is not regularly agitated. You get good at operating around it. Other people who do not look closely may not even know it is there. This kind of healing is survival, and it is genuinely not nothing. It takes real effort and real courage to arrive even at this level. But this is not what I am offering you. The healing I am bringing goes to the root. Do you understand what that means in practice? It means going back to the original wound, the one that predates the most recent breaking, the wound that made you vulnerable to that particular kind of pain in the first place. Most people have a primary wound, a core place of hurt that was inflicted early, often before they had the psychological and emotional tools to process and integrate it, that then became the lens through which all subsequent experiences were interpreted. The wound of abandonment that made every later loss feel like confirmation of a terrible truth about your place in the world. The wound of rejection that made every new relationship a place to manage carefully rather than inhabit freely. The wound of shame that made success feel undeserved and failure feel inevitable, and your own basic worthiness feel perpetually uncertain. My love reaches that wound, the original one, the one that goes the deepest, the one that is protected by the most layers of self-preservation because it is the most tender, the most formative, the one most bound up with your fundamental sense of who you are and what you can expect from life and from other people. My love reaches that place because it was present when that wound was first inflicted, and it has been working toward the healing of that place every day since then. The healing that is coming to your life is not new. It has been in motion for longer than you know. You are only beginning now to see the surface evidence of what has been happening in the deep, unseen places. Can you feel that even a little? The sense that something in you is loosening that has been held tightly for a long time. The subtle shift that happens when truth is spoken about something you thought no one could see clearly enough to name. That is not nothing. That is the sensation of healing beginning, of love doing what it does when it finally gets close to a wound. It hurts a little at first, the way a frozen limb hurts when it begins to warm. But the hurt of thawing is completely different from the hurt of freezing. One is the pain of coming back to life. The other is the pain of losing it. You know which one you are in right now. What does unconditional mean to you? When I say that my love for you is unconditional, what does that actually land as in your internal experience? Because most people have had some experience of conditional love. Love that came attached to requirements. Love that was warm when you performed well and cooled when you disappointed. Love that you had to maintain through your behavior rather than rest in through relationship. Love that could be withdrawn and occasionally was. Love whose reliability you could not fully count on because its continuation depended on things you could not always consistently provide. And that kind of love, even when the people providing it meant well and were doing the best they could with what they had, leaves a specific residue in a person. A chronic low-grade anxiety about whether you are currently sufficient. A habit of monitoring yourself for signs that you are about to fail the conditions. A fundamental uncertainty about whether you are loved when you are not performing. My love is the opposite of that in every particular. There are no conditions attached to it. Not because I do not care about how you live. I care deeply in the way that a parent cares about a child's choices, not because the choices affect the parent's love, but because the choices affect the child's life. My love for you does not fluctuate with your performance. It does not increase when you are good and decrease when you fail. It is a constant. You cannot earn more of it by doing better. You cannot lose any of it by doing worse. You can step into the full experience of it, or you can step back from it, but the love itself does not move. It is as fixed as my nature, which is to say it is as permanent as eternity, which is to say it is available to you right now in exactly the same measure it was available to you the day you were born and will be available to you on the last day of your life. The moment you failed in the way you are most ashamed of, my love for you was exactly what it was the moment before that failure, not diminished, not reconsidered, not placed in a category of loves that are given on probation. The distance you feel when you are far from me is not a distance I created. It is a distance you walked, usually out of shame, usually out of the mistaken belief that your failure had changed my assessment of you. And the whole time you were walking in the other direction, my love was exactly where it has always been, waiting for you to turn around, ready to run the moment you did. That is what I want you to receive today. Not just the fact of my love as an intellectual proposition, the quality of it, the texture of a love that does not flinch, that does not keep a tally, that does not harden when pushed, that has been called upon to absorb some genuinely terrible things from you and from the world, and has remained warm and active and relentlessly oriented toward your good. That kind of love is not soft. It is extraordinarily strong. It takes enormous power to remain loving in the face of everything that argues against love. And I have that power in infinite supply. And I am using it, all of it, specifically and intentionally, on you. Now let me ask you about the people around you, the ones who have hurt you, the ones from whom you have withdrawn, because the risk of continued closeness felt too high after what happened. The ones you still think about, still carry in some quiet chamber of your heart even now, years or months after the fracture. The ones whose names surface in your memory in unguarded moments with a complex mixture of love and grief and unresolved feeling. What do you believe is possible for those relationships? Here's what I see when I look at the situation from where I stand. I see people who are, all of them without exception, broken in their own ways. People who hurt you from their own place of hurt. People who acted from their own wounds, their own fears, their own patterns formed long before they met you, long before they had any opportunity to wound you specifically, who moved through the world in ways shaped by their own history of damage. This is not an excuse for what was done. I want to be clear about that. Real harm was caused, and it deserved acknowledgement, and it deserved repair. But understanding the root of where the harm came from changes the quality of the anger. It moves it from something hot and personal and final to something cooler and more complex. And in that complexity, in the honest recognition that broken people break things, and that you have also at times been a person who broke something in someone else's life, there is room for a different kind of movement. Forgiveness is possible for what happened to you, even for the things that feel unforgivable right now. Even for the harm that was serious and that you have not yet arrived at a place of releasing. Forgiveness is possible not because the harm was acceptable, but because the love I am placing in you is stronger than the harm that was done. And the release that forgiveness brings is not primarily a gift to the person who wronged you. It is a gift to yourself. Because as long as the anger and the wound are the primary frame through which you are experiencing that relationship, you are giving the worst moment of that relationship a power over your present life that it does not deserve and that you can choose to revoke. Have you ever witnessed a real reconciliation? Not a superficial one that papers over the break and pretends it did not happen. A real one, where both people have done the honest work of looking at what happened and sitting with what it cost, and finding somewhere in that difficulty a willingness to let the love be bigger than the wound. That kind of reconciliation has a quality to it that is unmistakable to anyone who has seen it. There is a depth in it, a richness, a quality of gratitude that relationships which have never been tested simply cannot have. The love that survives a serious breaking and chooses to return to the table together is a love that both people now know the value of in a way they did not before it was threatened. It is a love that has been shown its own durability under conditions that would have dissolved a lesser love. What if that is what is waiting on the other side of some of your most painful broken relationships? What if some of the most important connections of your life are not permanently over, but simply at the beginning of a chapter that has not started yet? A chapter that begins with honesty about what happened and openness to what could be different. And here is what I want you to do with the courage it takes to answer those questions honestly. Do not carry the answers back into the silence and manage them alone. Bring them to me. Bring the rawness of the thing, the unpolished, unmanaged, genuinely honest version of where you are, and let my love meet it there. Not in the space of performed prayer, in the space of real conversation. The kind where you say what is actually true rather than what you think you are supposed to say. Where you admit what you have been afraid to admit. Where you stop performing adequacy and simply tell me what has actually been happening in the interior rooms of your life. That kind of honesty is not weakness. It is the specific form of courage that love is waiting for. Because until you bring the real thing, love has to work around the version you are presenting. And I am more than capable of working around versions. I have been doing it for as long as people have been presenting them to me. But when you bring the real thing, when you stop managing the presentation and simply come with what is actually true, the love that meets you there can do something far more complete and far more specific. It can address what is actually broken rather than what you have decided it is appropriate to bring. And the difference between those two things is often enormous. Do you know what relief feels like in your body? The specific physical sensation of a burden being set down after it has been carried for a long time? The particular quality of release that happens when you have been holding yourself tightly for an extended period and are finally in a space where it is safe to let the tension go. That is the experience that the honesty I am inviting you into can produce. Not because the circumstances will immediately change, but because carrying things alone always costs more than carrying them with someone who can actually hold them. And what you bring to me, you are no longer carrying alone. I take the weight. Not by removing your awareness of the difficulty, but by bearing the weight of it alongside you in a way that actually lightens what you are carrying. There is a freedom in being known completely and loved anyway. A freedom that you can only fully experience when you have been fully honest about what is true and have discovered that the love on the other side of that honesty did not diminish. That the gaze that sees you completely still holds warmth. That the arms that know your full story still extend to hold you. That the table that was set with your name on it was not cleared when your worst moments became visible. That you are, in fact, more welcome here than you have let yourself believe. More fully at home, more completely received. That discovery, the personal discovery of it in your own experience, is the turning point that all of this has been moving toward. Not the intellectual understanding of unconditional love as a doctrine, the personal, felt, lived experience of being known completely and loved anyway. That experience changes everything. It changes the way you see yourself, the way you move in the world, the way you love other people, the quality of the life you are willing to inhabit. Because when you know from inside the experience rather than from outside the theory, that love is real and is for you and is not going anywhere, you are free to be the full version of yourself rather than the managed version. Free to try things and fail and try again without the failure being final. Free to love other people with something more than guarded caution. Free to hope without the constant armor against disappointment that hope has required when it was not grounded in something this solid. This is the freedom that is coming into your life. The freedom that restoration produces. Not the freedom of no constraints or no difficulties. The freedom of a life anchored in something that cannot be moved. The freedom of a person who knows they are loved and therefore knows they are safe to live fully, to try and fail and try again, to love and lose and love again, to hope and be disappointed and hope again, because the ground beneath all of it is solid and the love above all of it is permanent, and neither the disappointments nor the failures nor the losses can touch the fundamental reality of who they are and what they are held by. Walk into that freedom. It is yours. It has been waiting for you for longer than you know, and the love that has been patiently preparing it for you, working all the pieces into place, refining what needed refining, healing what needed healing, opening what needed opening, is the same love that is handing it to you right now with both hands and saying simply, "It is time." Picture the ocean after a storm. Not during the storm, when the waves are violent and the sky is a bruised dark gray and nothing seems stable and every fixed reference point has disappeared into the chaos. After, the way the surface settles slowly back into itself, one breath at a time, 1 hour at a time. The way the light returns to the water in long, tilting lines of gold that did not exist before the storm and would not exist now without having had the storm to clear the air and open the sky. The way the shore is different after the storm has passed through. Some things carried away, new things deposited. The sand rearranged into patterns that were not there before the weather came. The water table below the beach having been altered by the passing of all that force. The beach after a storm is not the same beach that existed before. It has been changed, rearranged by forces too large to resist. But it is still a beach, still made of the same essential substance, still shaped by the same fundamental relationship between land and water that has always defined it. And in some ways, in ways that a person who loves coastlines and pays careful attention will notice, more beautiful for the evidence of what it has weathered. The colors in the wet sand after a storm have a specificity and a depth that dry, calm day sand does not. The lines left by the receding waves carry their own kind of elegance. The things washed up have a random particular quality, a here-ness, that makes them interesting in a way that makes you want to stop and look. This is an image of your life right now. The storm has passed through, or is passing through, because some of you are still in the middle section of it, rather than in the after. But whether you are in the storm or in its aftermath, what I want you to hear is the same. The rearranging has happened or is happening. Things that were in one place are now in another. Things that seemed permanent have been moved. The shoreline of your life looks different than it did before. And standing at the edge of all that change, it can be genuinely difficult to see the beauty in what remains. It is not unreasonable to grieve the arrangement that existed before the weather came. The grief is real. The loss is real. But the light is returning to the water, right now, even as you take stock of what the storm rearranged. Those long lines of gold are appearing on the surface of your life, showing up in conversations you did not expect, in small, unexpected graces, in the quiet returning of things you thought were gone. And what the rearrangement has revealed, what is visible now that was not visible before the storm moved some things out of the way, is worth seeing. Some of the new patterns are more honest than what was there before. Some of what the storm carried away needed to go, even though losing it was painful, because it was keeping you from something more true. And some of what it deposited was a gift disguised as debris. The imagery of a home keeps returning through everything I am saying to you, and it returns because it matters. A home is not primarily about architecture. It is not about the specific layout of rooms or the quality of the building materials or the number of windows. A home is about the quality of life within it, the warmth that greets you when you walk through the door, the sense of knowing where things are, of belonging to a place that belongs to you, the table set in the center of it where people gather and are nourished, the specific quality of light in a particular room at a particular hour, the smell that is only that house's smell, made up of all the particular things that have lived and been cooked and been used within those walls over time. Home is the experience of being fundamentally welcome, of having your presence expected and desired, of knowing that the door opens for you specifically, that the light was left on for you. My love is the home your soul has been looking for, through every human experience of longing. Every time you reached for belonging and found something that was close, but not quite. Every time connection was real, but had edges of limitation. Every time the beauty of the world moved you in a way that felt like recognition rather than simply appreciation. Like you were seeing something you had always known rather than encountering something new. Every inexplicable ache for something you cannot name that surfaces at odd moments in the middle of ordinary days. Every moment when you looked at something genuinely beautiful or genuinely kind and felt simultaneously transported and inexplicably sad. All of that is your soul recognizing the shape of the home it came from and the home it is returning to. You are made in love, in my love specifically and precisely and intentionally, and something in you has always known it. The homesickness that surfaces in unguarded moments is your soul recognizing its own address. The restoration of your life is, at its deepest level, a coming home. A movement back toward the original love, the love that made you, the love that has not stopped making you and remaking you into greater fullness. And every act of restoration in your life, every healing, every renewal, every reconciliation, every reopening of a door that seemed permanently closed is a step in that direction. A movement toward home, a movement back toward love. The image of precious metal in the fire deserves one more visit, because there is a detail in the process of refining gold that most people do not know. The temperature of the furnace must be precisely calibrated, not generally in the right range, precisely calibrated. Too low, and the impurities do not separate fully from the metal. They remain embedded in it, invisible at the surface but corrupting the integrity of what it becomes. Too high, and the metal itself begins to be damaged rather than purified. The goldsmith who knows what he is doing maintains the fire at exactly the right temperature and adjusts it constantly as the process proceeds. watching the metal with the specific attention that comes from knowing both the material and the goal. Never applying more heat than is necessary to accomplish the work. Never removing the heat before the work is complete. When I speak to you about the fire you have been in, the difficult seasons, the losses, the pressures that have shaped you, I want you to hear this carefully. The temperature was calibrated, not by forces indifferent to your well-being, by me, by the one who knows the metal better than the metal knows itself, better than you know yourself, who knows exactly how much pressure is required to produce the specific quality of character that your specific life and specific calling require. Every degree of that fire was intentional. Every moment of it was watched over by eyes that never looked away from you, by hands that were always positioned to intervene if the process needed adjustment. You were never alone in the furnace. You were never subject to forces that I was not sovereign over. The fire was mine. The timing was mine. The outcome is mine. And the outcome is more beautiful than you can currently imagine. There is a Japanese art form called kintsugi, the repair of broken pottery with gold. When a ceramic vessel breaks, instead of discarding it or hiding the repair with something invisible, the practice involves filling the cracks with lacquer mixed with gold or silver or platinum. The result is not an imperfect copy of the original vessel with its damage covered up. It is a new version of the vessel, more beautiful than the unbroken one, because the lines of gold running through it tell a story. Not the story of an object that survived intact, but the story of something that broke and was repaired with something precious, and whose repair is now the most visually striking feature of the whole piece. The cracks become the most valuable part. The gold highlights rather than hides the history of the vessel. And anyone who looks at it sees immediately not just a beautiful object, but the story of its breaking and its restoration woven into its beauty. This is precisely and literally what my love does with the broken places of your life. It does not hide them. It does not paper over them with spiritual language that makes the damage invisible, or pretend that the breaking did not happen or was not significant. It fills them with something precious. The crack where trust was broken and has been slowly rebuilt is filled with a gold that only that specific crack in that specific relationship could hold. The fracture where a relationship nearly ended and did not is filled with a gold whose beauty declares the story of how close to the edge things went, and how love, persistent and stubborn and stronger than the damage, stepped in. The break where you lost your sense of self and slowly found it again, with honesty and difficulty and grace, is filled with a gold so bright that if you could see it the way I see it, it would stop you in your tracks. The person you are becoming, the person this season is producing, is not the original person minus the damage. You are the original person plus the gold. Fuller, more complex, more genuinely alive, with a quality of beauty that is inseparable from your history, and that could not exist without it. Hear me now, with everything in you that is willing to hear. The things you lost in the breaking, let them go for a moment. Not forever. Not in the sense of pretending they did not matter, or that the loss was not real, but in the sense of releasing your grip on them long enough to receive something from my hand. Because what my hand is holding for you is something you have not yet seen clearly, something that requires both of your hands to receive, which means releasing, even temporarily, what you have been clutching. There is a garden of things in your future that you have not yet been able to see clearly because the season has looked like winter and the soil has looked empty and bare. But the seeds are in the ground. They have been there for longer than you know, placed there by a love that plants in faith and waters in patience and harvests in joy, and does not panic at the length of the winter, because the length of the winter is part of the knowledge the seed is gathering underground before it emerges. And the season is already shifting. Something is moving in the soil that was still. The temperature of the air has begun to change in ways too subtle for you to register consciously, but too real for the seeds to miss. The dormancy is ending. The emergence is beginning. And in your coming spring, in the season that is already shifting even as you receive these words, what comes up out of the ground will astonish you. Gardening is patient work. It requires showing up for the ground even when the ground shows nothing, watering what appears to be empty, trusting the seed on the basis of what seeds do, rather than what this particular ground is currently showing. There is a specific kind of faith involved in gardening, the faith that acts on the knowledge of what is real, even when the evidence is invisible. The faith that keeps coming back to the garden, not because there is something there to see yet, but because the gardener knows something about the nature of seeds and soil and seasons that the casual observer does not. This is the faith I am asking you to inhabit right now, not the faith that demands visible evidence before it will commit to trust. The faith that trusts the nature of the love that planted the seeds, that knows on the basis of who the gardener is and what gardeners do, that the ground is not as empty as it looks, that the silence is not the silence of absence, but the silence of growth happening below the surface, growth that will announce itself when it is ready, in the form and in the season that the gardener knows is right. The home that love is building for your life, the life that is taking shape on the other side of this season, has rooms in it that you have not yet imagined. Not just the restoration of what was, but the addition of things that could only come through the process you have been in, capacities you have developed in the furnace that you did not have before you entered it, relationships that will be formed between you and other people who have been through their own fires and who will recognize in you the specific quality that comes from having been in the same kind of heat and survived it. A depth of faith that is not theoretical but proven, that has been tested in the specific conditions of your life and has not failed. A quality of love in you that is muscular and enduring because it has been forced to develop its muscles. Every promise I have made over your life remains active. Every word I have spoken over you, in the original design of who I made you to be, in the specific calling that is yours and no one else's, in the vision of what your life was made to become, those words are alive. They have not been quietly rescinded because circumstances became difficult. They have not been placed in a contingency file somewhere, waiting to see whether you would prove worthy of their fulfillment. They are working, right now, in ways you can see and in ways you cannot yet. The unseen work is the larger work, and the fruit of it will be visible in due season. The foundation under your life is holding, not the shaky foundation of your own performance, which was never designed to be the foundation of anything. The foundation of my love, which has already proven its capacity to remain solid under conditions that would crack anything lesser. That foundation has been tested thoroughly and specifically in the context of your life. It has been tested by your worst moments and it is held. It has been tested by the world's worst moments and it is held. It has been tested by the kinds of pressures that unmask foundations as either genuine or illusory, and it has been unmasked as genuine. The ground under you is solid. You are not going to fall through. The love that is holding you has held far greater weight than yours and has not buckled and will not buckle. There is something I want to speak to you about that sits very close to the center of everything we have been saying, something that might be the most personal part of this entire conversation. It has to do with the way you see yourself when you are at your most honest. Not the version of yourself you present to the world, the version that is holding things together and functioning and keeping up the necessary appearances of a person who is managing. Not the version you present even in your better moments, when things are going reasonably well and you feel capable and connected. The version of yourself you encounter when everything goes quiet and you are alone with your own thoughts and the internal voice that speaks most plainly. What does that voice say about you? What is the baseline story you carry about your own value, your own capacity, your own worthiness of good things? Because for most people who have been through significant loss or failure or disappointment, that internal voice has been shaped by those experiences in ways that were never intended. The losses wrote things on the interior walls of your life that were not true, but that you have been reading so regularly that they began to feel like facts. The failures told stories about who you are, about what is possible for you, about what you deserve, that were not my stories, but that filled the space where my stories should have lived. And slowly, without a dramatic moment of decision, you began to navigate your life from the inside of those stories. What would it mean to live from different stories? Stories that come from my perspective, rather than from the perspective of your most painful experiences? Stories that are written not in the language of what went wrong, but in the language of what was always true about you, what is still true, what will be true regardless of what has happened. Here is the story I tell about you. You were made with intention and delight. Not as an afterthought, not as a product of chance, not as a generic instance of a species, but as a specific, particular, unrepeatable person whose existence was chosen. There has never been and will never be another you. The configuration of gifts and vulnerabilities and experiences and perceptions and loves that make up the person you are is a singular thing, unique in all of history. And what I placed in you, the capacity to love and create and perceive and contribute and suffer and grow and reflect my own character in the specific way that only you can, that is not diminished by what you have been through. It is not canceled by your failures. It waits, in some cases dormant, in other cases actively working even now, for the full expression that is coming. The story I tell about you is not the story of your worst chapter. Every person's story contains chapters they would not have chosen and would not choose again. Chapters of failure, of loss, of choices made from a lesser version of themselves. But the story of a life is not any single chapter. It is the whole arc. And the whole arc of your life, seen from my perspective, is the arc of a love so determined to reach you and hold you and restore you that it worked through every chapter, including the worst ones, to arrive at the chapter that is currently being written and the ones that are still to come. Receive that story. Let it begin to replace the stories written by your losses. Not by pretending the losses did not happen, not by denying the chapters that were hard, but by placing them in a larger context, the context of a love that was present in every chapter and is weaving every chapter, including those, into something that will be recognized in the end as beautiful. Let me tell you about the nature of waiting, because many of you are in a season of waiting right now. You have asked for things and have not yet received them. You have prayed prayers that have not yet been visibly answered. You have hoped for changes that have not yet fully arrived. And the waiting has been long enough that it has begun to feel like something other than waiting. Like absence. Like silence. Like perhaps the prayer reached a ceiling rather than a listener. I want to speak to the quality of this waiting. Not to dismiss the difficulty of it, because waiting is genuinely difficult, and the difficulty is real. But to offer you a different way of understanding what is happening in the waiting. Waiting, as I oversee it in the life of someone I am building towards something, is not a passive state. It is not empty time being held in reserve until the real work begins. Waiting is active. It is the season of preparation, of character development, of the quieter, slower, less visible kinds of growth that can only happen when the pace of life is not being driven by the urgency of immediate results. The oak tree takes decades to become what it is. The diamond takes millions of years of pressure deep underground. The finest wines require years in the dark before they are ready to be uncorked. Not everything that is most valuable happens quickly. Not everything that is most real is immediately visible. And the most significant things that I am building in you and for you are taking the time they require, not because I am slow or because I have forgotten what I started, but because what is being built requires the time it is taking. The foundation must be properly set before the weight of what is coming can be placed on it. The root system must be deep enough before the canopy can grow to the height it is destined to reach. What are you building in the waiting? Because waiting, understood correctly, is never simply passive endurance. It is formation. It is the season when the character that will be required for the next chapter is being developed. When the trust that will be needed to inhabit the blessing is being strengthened. When the roots are going down deeper than they would go in easier conditions. Are you using the waiting well? Not in the sense of performing spiritual disciplines as a way of speeding up the answer. In the deeper sense of being genuinely present in the season, learning what the season is offering to teach, developing what the season is designed to develop. The things I am waiting to give you, I am waiting because you need to be ready to receive them. Not ready in some idealized sense, perfectly equipped and fully sanctified, and without any remaining areas of growth. Ready in the practical sense that what I'm about to place in your hands requires a version of you that this season of waiting is currently producing. And the waiting, as much as it has cost you, is not the opposite of love. It is one of love's most careful and deliberate expressions. Now, with that understanding as the backdrop, let me speak to you about the specific things that are coming. I will not speak in vague generalities about blessing, as though blessing were a nameless, undifferentiated good that might apply to anyone. I want to speak with the specificity that comes from knowing you, from knowing your actual story, from knowing the places that have been empty, and the relationships that have been strained, and the dreams that have been dormant, and the prayers you have been bringing to me in the quiet. The healing you have been asking for in your body, the one that has gone on longer than you thought it would, the one that has required more patience than you felt you had. That healing is in the hands of the one who made your body and knows it more intimately than any physician. My eyes are upon that situation. My attention has not wavered from it. The restoration of your health is a matter of my care, and my care is not limited by the limitations of what medical knowledge can accomplish. The healing I bring can reach places no instrument can reach, and the season of that healing is not as far off as it has felt. The finances that have been a source of anxiety, the places where provision has felt uncertain and the worry has been a companion in your quiet hours, those are known to me in complete detail, not the surface facts of what is owed and what is needed. The deeper texture of what the financial pressure has cost you emotionally, relationally, in terms of sleep and peace and the quality of your daily experience. The provision that is coming to your life is coming from a source that is not limited by the state of any economy or the behavior of any market or the decisions of any employer. My provision flows from a supply that does not run low. And the timing of what is coming, while perhaps not matching the timeline your anxiety has been demanding, is the right timing. The relationships that have been strained, the specific ones, the ones that come to mind when I say the word, those relationships are held in my awareness with the same completeness that every part of your life is held. My love has been working in those situations in ways that you have not been able to see, in the hearts of the people involved, in the circumstances that create the conditions for reconciliation, in your own heart, softening the places that need to soften, strengthening the places that need to be stronger, preparing you for the conversation or the reunion or the next chapter of that relationship in whatever form it is going to take. The dream you put away, the one you have been afraid to take out and look at because you are not sure you could bear another disappointment. That dream was not placed in you by accident. The very fact that you have carried it as long as you have, that it has not simply faded the way passing interests fade, that it returns to you at unexpected moments and still moves something in you when it does, that persistence is itself evidence that the dream is real, that it is connected to something genuine in who you are and what you were made to do. And real dreams placed by me and real people do not expire. They wait. They become more urgent as the season of their fulfillment approaches. There are doors in your life that are going to open, not as a figure of speech, but as a literal description of what is coming. Situations that have been closed that will become open. People whose paths will cross yours at exactly the right moment with exactly the connection or the opportunity or the word that changes something. Circumstances that have felt static beginning to move. The specific configurations of grace that I arrange for people I am working on behalf of cannot be predicted or manufactured or forced. They arrive in their own time, in their own form, and when they arrive, they carry the unmistakable quality of being orchestrated by something larger than the circumstances themselves. Pay attention. Not with the anxious attention of someone straining to see whether the answer is finally arriving. With the open, receptive attention of someone who expects to be surprised, who knows that the love working on their behalf is creative and resourceful, and that the form the blessing takes may not be the form they were expecting. Sometimes what arrives is not the specific thing you asked for, but something better, something that addresses the actual need beneath the stated request, in a way the stated request could not have accomplished. Sometimes the answer arrives through a door you were not watching because all your attention was on the door you had decided was the one. Keep your attention open. The love I am speaking about is not predictable in its methods. It is only predictable in its intention, which is always and only your good. Walk through these days that are coming with a different quality of expectation than you have been carrying. Not the expectation of someone who demands a specific outcome by a specific time, or concludes that love has failed if that precise configuration does not arrive on schedule. The expectation of someone who knows they are loved and therefore knows that what is coming, whatever form it takes and whatever timing it arrives in, is coming from a love that does not make mistakes, that does not overlook, that does not underestimate what you need or provide something insufficient. The expectation of a child who trusts the parent, not because the child understands every decision the parent makes, but because the child's long experience of that parent has established beyond reasonable doubt that the parent is for them and not against them. I am for you. I have always been for you. In every season, including the ones that did not feel like it, I was working on your behalf with everything at my disposal. And what is at my disposal is everything that exists. The full creative power of the universe, the intelligence that designed every intricate system in the created order, the love that chose to enter into the full cost of human existence rather than remain at a comfortable distance from it. All of that is working right now in the specific and particular circumstances of your specific and particular life. But the heaviness lift, not by force of will, not by deciding to feel differently than you feel, but by receiving the truth that the heaviness has been sitting on. The truth that the love doing the work in your life is equal to everything that has been broken, that it is greater than the damage, that it has already decided how the story ends, and the ending is restoration. The ending is wholeness. The ending is you fully at home in the love that made you and kept you, and will never, under any circumstances, let you go. The light in this story is not at the end of a tunnel somewhere far off in a future you cannot quite picture. The light is here, in this word, in this moment, in the love that is speaking directly to the place in you that most needed to hear that it is not forgotten, that the waiting has not been wasted, that the breaking was not the end, that the restoration is real and is already in motion and will not stop until it is complete. The light is here, and it is yours, and it has always been yours, and it is saying to you now the simplest and most powerful thing that love has ever said. I am not done with you. I am not even close to done. The best is not behind you. It is ahead, and the love that is carrying you there is the same love that carried you here, and it has never once, in all the long miles of the journey, put you down. Think about what it means for something to be eternal, not just very long-lasting, not just outlasting the normal lifespan of things. Eternal in the proper sense, which means outside of time entirely, not bound by the beginning and ending structure that governs everything else in the created order. My love is eternal. It did not begin at a point in time, and it will not end at a point in time. It exists in a category outside of those categories, which means that it is not subject to the erosion that time imposes on created things. The love that is working in your life is not aging, is not wearing down under the weight of prolonged exposure to difficulty, is not approaching some natural limit beyond which it will no longer function at full capacity. It is as fully itself as it was in the first moment of your existence, and as it will be in every moment of your existence to come. This is one of the most stabilizing truths that exists for a person who is in a long and difficult season. The love attending to your situation is not running low, is not getting tired of the work, is not subtly shifting its investment toward situations that seem more promising. Its attention to you is as fresh and as full today as it was the day you were made. And the hope attached to your situation, the hope that is mine rather than yours, the hope that does not fluctuate with circumstances because it is grounded in my nature rather than in what is currently visible, that hope is completely and exactly intact, not diminished by the length of the difficulty, not discouraged by the seasons that felt like regression, fully intact, fully confident, fully expectant of the outcome that was always intended. Receive that hope. Let it enter the places in you that hope has been absent from. Not manufactured hope, not hope you are performing because you feel you should feel hopeful. The actual hope that is being extended to you right now, from my certainty about your outcome, into the uncertainty of your daily experience. Let my confidence in what is coming speak into your doubt about whether it is really coming. Let the certainty of eternal love be louder in you than the uncertainty of temporary circumstances. Because the circumstances are temporary and the love is eternal and the love is stronger. And the love is going to have the final word about your life. The final word is not what broke. The final word is not the chapter that was most difficult. The final word is not the version of your life that existed at its lowest point and that you are afraid might be representative of where things are heading permanently. The final word is restoration, is wholeness, is beauty produced through a process that included the breaking and used the breaking and transformed the breaking into something it could not have become without the breaking. The final word is you, fully at home in the love that made you, fully inhabiting the life that love always intended for you, fully the person you were created to be, carrying in your hands and in your history the gold of what love did in the hard places. That is the final word, and it is already certain, and it is coming, and you are already in the middle of its arrival. There is a particular kind of courage that I want to talk about now, a courage that does not get celebrated very often because it does not look heroic from the outside. It is not the courage of a dramatic moment. It is not the courage that acts in a crisis with all eyes watching. It is the courage of continuing. The courage of getting up one more time when the falling has happened so many times that getting up no longer feels like a triumph, but simply like a reflex. The courage of keeping your heart open when experience has given you every reason to close it. The courage of choosing to love again after love has cost you. The courage of hoping again after hope has disappointed you. This is the courage I see in you. This is the kind of valor that moves me. Not the performances of strength that people show each other to demonstrate that they are coping, but the quiet, daily, unseen decision to keep going, to keep showing up for your life, to refuse, in the deepest part of yourself, to accept the verdict that things cannot change, that you cannot be healed, that love is not worth risking again. Every day that you make that choice, even imperfectly, even with significant doubt accompanying it, you are doing something real, something that matters, something that I see. The courage of continuing is the courage that restoration requires of you. I do the part that only I can do. You do the part that only you can do. And your part is this continuing, this refusal to finally settle into permanent resignation, this daily opening of the hand that wants to close, and the love that sees that courage in you, that watches you choose life again on the days when life asks more than you feel you have, is not unmoved by it. There is a quality of attention I give to people who are choosing to continue in difficult circumstances that is specific and tender. Your continuing is not going unnoticed. Let me say something about what it means that you are here right now, in this conversation, receiving these words. You did not end up here by accident. The movement of your life toward this specific moment of connection has been orchestrated by a love that knew what you needed and knew how to get it to you. The person who sent you this, if someone sent it to you, was moved by something they may not have fully understood. The algorithm that surfaced it to you, if you found it through searching, was guided by an impulse in you that was itself guided by something larger than impulse. You are here because I wanted you to be here, because there are words in this conversation that your specific situation needed, and the love that is working in your life arranged for them to reach you. That is not a small thing. That is actually one of the more intimate forms of what love does. It pays attention to the specific needs of the people it loves, and then works, through whatever available channels, to meet those needs. The specific words you needed to hear at this specific point in your story have reached you, not by coincidence, by design. And the love that designed this moment is the same love that is designing every other moment of your life, with the same degree of attention and the same degree of intention. Now let us speak about what renewal looks like in the daily life of a real person. Because renewal is not only the dramatic turning points, not only the moments of clear breakthrough that can later be pointed to as the moment everything changed. Renewal is mostly a daily practice. It is mostly the accumulation of small choices and small openings and small acts of receiving that build, over time, into a life that looks and feels and is genuinely different from the life that was lived before the renewal. What does renewal look like in a conversation that has been strained? It looks like one person deciding to speak with a little more honesty or a little more warmth than the pattern of the last several months has required. It looks like the decision, made quietly and without announcement, to stop rehearsing the grievance and start listening for something real. It looks like noticing a moment of genuine connection, even in the middle of a still complicated relationship, and choosing to acknowledge it, to let it count for something, rather than dismissing it because the relationship has not yet returned to full health. What does renewal look like in a dream that has been dormant? It looks like taking the dream out of the drawer for the first time in a while and looking at it honestly. Not with the full weight of all the reasons it seemed impossible. Not with the defensive posture of someone who needs to be ready to put it away again quickly if the prospect of hope becomes too costly, but with genuine curiosity, asking it questions. What of you is still real? What of you has grown or changed in the time you have been in the drawer? What do you require of me now that you did not require before? What is different about the season we are entering that might be different from the season you were last active in? What does renewal look like in the relationship between yourself and your own story? It looks like beginning to tell that story differently. Not in a falsely positive way that denies the parts that were hard, but in a way that includes the resilience alongside the suffering, the moments of grace alongside the moments of grief, the evidence of what held you alongside the evidence of what tested you. The story of your life is not only a list of what went wrong, it is also a list of what did not break when it was tested, a list of what stayed present when other things left, a list of the small and large ways that love showed up in unlikely forms at unlikely moments. Those things are in your story too, and the way you tell the story shapes the way you live from it. The restoration of your life is not separate from the restoration of the story you tell about your life. The way you understand what has happened to you, the framework you use to make sense of it, the narrative you inhabit as you move forward, all of this shapes what is possible for you going forward. A person who carries their history as pure burden, as a weight that must be dragged into every new situation, lives differently than a person who carries the same history as something that has been worked on by love and is becoming something it could not have been without having passed through what it passed through. Both people have the same history. The difference is the story they tell about it. I am not asking you to pretend your history was different than it was. I am asking you to place it in the full context, the context that includes my presence through all of it, the context that acknowledges the work that has been done in you through every difficult chapter, the context that sees the gold in the cracks not as a metaphor but as a literal description of what is happening to the broken places of your life right now. That is the full context. And from within the full context, the story is different, not easier, not free of grief, but different in a way that matters enormously for the direction it points. Think for a moment about the people who have walked with you through the difficult seasons, the ones who showed up when showing up was costly, the ones who stayed in the room when the situation was complicated enough that leaving would have been understandable, the ones who said the honest and loving thing rather than the comfortable and distant thing. Those people were not coincidences in your life. They were love working through people to reach you. The specific form of care they showed you, the specific ways they were present, were the form that my love took in those moments to make itself tangible in your experience. Every person who has genuinely loved you has done so because love moves through people, because I place in people the capacity and the impulse to care for each other, and the caring that has reached you through their hands and voices has been my caring reaching you through them. Do not underestimate what those connections have done in you. The places in you that can still trust, that have not been entirely closed by the history of disappointment, exist at least in part because of the people who remain trustworthy through the breaking. The places in you that still have access to hope exist at least in part because people who loved you kept offering it to you, even when you were not sure you could receive it. You are not a self-made person. You are a person made by love, both mine and the love that has moved through the people around you. And the restoration that is happening in you is happening partly through your own willingness and partly through the continuing presence of people whose love for you is itself one of my instruments. Be grateful for them. Tell them, if you have not recently, what their presence in your life has meant. The specific particular thing that their presence has meant. Not the generic acknowledgement that you are grateful for them, but the honest account of the specific way that their specific love has reached you in the specific places you needed to be reached. That kind of honest gratitude is itself a form of restoration. It closes circuits that have been open too long. It says the things that love means to say, and sometimes forgets to say, in the busyness of daily life. And it deposits something in the relationship that neither party will be sorry to have placed there. There is a season coming in your life that has a different quality from the season you have been in. It will not be a season free of difficulty. I do not promise that. The world contains real difficulty and you will not be exempted from all of it. But there is a different quality coming. A sense of things moving rather than staying still. Of doors that have been closed beginning to open, sometimes unexpectedly, sometimes in response to persistent patient work. Of relationships that have been cold beginning to warm. Of prayers that have been consistent beginning to receive visible answers. Of the specific kind of lightness that comes when a burden that has been carried for a long time is finally lifted. When a weight you had gotten so used to carrying that you could no longer imagine what it would feel like to be without it is removed from your shoulders. That lightness is coming, and when it arrives, receive it fully. Do not diminish it with the fear that it will not last, or with the suspicion that something must be about to go wrong because things have been going better. Do not protect yourself from joy by refusing to fully enter it. The joy that is coming is a real joy, appropriate to real things that are genuinely getting better. It deserves to be fully inhabited, fully expressed, fully shared with the people around you who have walked through the harder season alongside you and who have been waiting with you for the turning. Let the turning be celebrated. Let the evidence of restoration be allowed to count for what it is. Let the new things that are coming, the unexpected connections and the open doors and the stirring of dormant dreams and the warming of cold places, let them be received as exactly what they are. The visible evidence of what love has been building invisibly. The first fruits of a harvest that has been growing underground for a long season. The dawn after the long night, not because nights are permanent, but because I made the world to turn toward the light. You have been through enough. Not enough in the sense that suffering has built sufficient character and can now be retired. Enough in the sense that the season of this particular kind of difficulty has accomplished what it was allowed to accomplish, and a new season is appropriate, and the new season is arriving. You will not always be where you have been. The road continues and the landscape changes. And the love that has walked every mile of the road with you until this point is going to keep walking, is going to be present for the new landscape, is going to continue doing in the new season what it has done in every previous season, which is working every detail of your life toward the good it has already decided on your behalf. The love that is restoring you does not get bored with the work, does not get tired of the process, does not decide partway through that the project is less interesting than it seemed at the beginning. It began this work with full knowledge of how long it would take and what it would cost and what it would require, and it undertook it anyway, with joy. With the specific joy of love doing what love does, reaching into broken things and healing them, entering into loss and restoring it, taking the raw material of a human life with all its damage and all its dormant beauty, and working it into something that reflects, in the specific way that only that life can reflect, the nature of the love that made it. You are that project. You have always been that project. And the love overseeing your restoration has not changed its mind about the beauty of what it is making. There is something about the nature of love that is most clearly visible not in comfortable moments, but in tested ones. Not in the seasons when everything is working and the evidence for love is abundant and easy to point to, but in the seasons when the evidence is thin and the feeling is absent, and the only thing remaining is the commitment that does not rest on feeling. That is where the true nature of love reveals itself. And the love I am speaking to you about has been most clearly revealed precisely in the seasons that tested it most severely. Think about what it would have meant for this love to fail the test. To be the kind of love that is warm and present when things are going well, and then withdraws when circumstances become demanding. To be the kind of love that promises and then qualifies. That claims to be unconditional and then discovers, in the difficult hour, a condition that was not previously announced. That kind of love would have cost you something enormous if you had built your life on it and then discovered its limitations in the middle of a storm. And I want you to know that you have not built on that kind of love. What holds your life is tested love. Love that was present in the worst hour and did not leave. Love that was present in the hour of your worst failure and did not withdraw. Love that has been tested by everything your life has thrown at it and has not failed a single test. That is the love you are standing on right now. That is the ground beneath your feet as you walk through whatever season you are currently in. And knowing the quality of what is under you changes the quality of how you can walk. Not arrogantly, not as though difficulty no longer touches you, but with a kind of rootedness that is different from false confidence. The rootedness of someone who has tested the ground and found it solid, who knows from personal experience that what holds them will not let them fall all the way down. That even on the days when the footing feels uncertain, the ground is there, has always been there, will continue to be there. The restoration that is happening in your life is not an event. It is a process, and it is also a direction. It is the direction your life is moving, even on the days when it does not feel like movement is happening, even on the days that feel static or regressive or discouraging. The overall direction is restoration. The overall arc is toward wholeness. And the individual moments that feel like setbacks are not reversals of the direction. They are moments within the arc. They will pass. The direction will continue. And the final form of where this direction is taking you is more beautiful than anything you can currently imagine. Because what I am building toward is not what you have known, but what you have not yet seen. The fullest expression of who you were made to be, living in the fullest expression of what love has always intended for your life. And in between now and that fullness, there are real and specific things that are coming. Real healing, real restoration of things that were broken, real opening of doors that have been closed, real renewal of hope that has been tired, real deepening of faith that has been tested, real abundance flowing into areas that have known lack, real warmth returning to places that have been cold, real belonging in communities of people who will love you for who you are rather than for what you perform, real joy in the things you were made to love and the work you were made to do. All of it real, all of it coming, all of it already in motion. Let me say something about community, because restoration rarely happens in isolation. It is not impossible for love to heal a person in solitude. But the fullness of restoration, the kind that settles into every dimension of a life, tends to happen in relationship. The healing of the individual heart is one part of the work. The healing of the individual heart within a community of genuine love is a larger and more complete work. Because human beings are made for each other, as well as for me. The love that restores does not only want to heal your interior life and leave you intact, but isolated. It wants to bring you into connection, into genuine, tested, mutual, real connection with other people who are also being worked on by the same love. You may already be in a community like that. A small group of people, perhaps, who know the real version of your story rather than the surface version, and who have stayed present through the chapters that were not easy to be present for. If you have that, receive it more fully. Let the love in those relationships reach you more deeply. Bring the real version of your situation into those spaces rather than the managed version. Let other people carry parts of what you have been carrying alone. And if you do not yet have that, if you are reading this from a place of significant relational isolation, hear me on this. That isolation is one of the things that is changing. The relationships that are coming into your life, some of which have not yet arrived, will be different from the relationships that left you isolated. They will be the relationships that the restoration is building toward. The people who will know you as the person you are becoming, rather than only as the person you were in the chapters that were most difficult. and the quality of connection that is possible between people who have both been through something and come out the other side carrying their refinement is different from and deeper than the quality of connection between people who have not yet been tested. You will recognize each other, and the recognition will be the beginning of something that lasts. Walk toward life. This is the simplest and deepest thing I can say to you. Walk toward the life that is being restored rather than away from it. Walk toward the relationships that have the potential for genuine connection rather than managing them from a safe distance. Walk toward the dreams that are stirring in the drawer rather than leaving them safely dormant. Walk toward the hope that is returning rather than managing it carefully to avoid disappointment. Walk toward me. Walk toward the love that is doing everything I have described in this conversation. Walk toward it with everything you have, including your doubts and your history and your weariness and your unresolved questions. None of those things disqualify you from the walk. They are just the things you bring with you on the road. And the road is long enough and the company is good enough that you will have time to sort through all of them along the way. The love that restores all things is walking with you. It has always been walking with you. It will never stop walking with you. And what it is walking you toward is a life more whole, more full, more genuinely loved and loving, more deeply rooted in what is real, more richly inhabited than anything you have been able to fully picture. The love is not limited by the limits of your imagination. It is not limited by the limits of your current circumstances or your current capacity or the current state of any situation in your life. It works in the space beyond limits. It sees the end from the beginning, and it knows exactly what it is building, and it is not worried about whether it can accomplish it. There is no doubt in the love doing this work. Only certainty. Only the joyful, determined, relentless certainty of love that knows its own power and uses it fully on behalf of the person it loves. That person is you. The love is yours. The restoration is real. And the life you are walking into, the chapter that is beginning even now, is the best chapter you have known. Not because everything will be easy, because everything will be infused with a love you now know the depth of, because the roots go deep enough to hold you in the wind, because the gold in the cracks tells the story of a love that refused to leave even when everything broke, because the table is set and your place is marked and the warmth is real and you are home. Before we arrive at the close of this conversation, I want to sit with you in one more space. The space of the specific. Because everything I have said to you today about love and restoration and the work of healing operates ultimately not in the realm of the general, but in the realm of the particular. Not in the abstract life, but in your life. Not in some universal story of human restoration, but in your story. Your specific wounds, your specific relationships, your specific dreams, your specific season. And I want you to feel, before we finish, the weight of that particularity. You are not a concept. You are not a representative of a category of people who need to be told that God loves them. You are a person, with a name, with a face I made, with a history I know in complete detail, with a particular configuration of joys and griefs, of capacities and limitations, of loves and losses, that is unlike any other configuration that has ever existed. The love that is speaking to you in this conversation is not addressing a category. It is addressing you, the specific you, the one reading these words at this particular moment in this particular season of your particular life. And that specific love, aimed at your specific person, is saying something specific. It is saying that the particular things you are carrying right now are known. Not approximately known, not generally known, not known in the way that a doctor knows a patient's file without knowing the patient. Known the way I know you. The way a father knows a child he has watched every day of the child's life. With intimacy and detail and affection and complete, undiluted attention. Your specific situation is not lost in the crowd. Your specific wounds are not blended into a general awareness of human suffering. They are known, named, held. And the restoration being worked in your specific life is specific restoration, not a generic improvement in your general circumstances. The healing of the specific wound, the repair of the specific relationship, the return of the specific dream. the filling of the specific hollow places with the specific form of abundance that only love can provide. My work in your life is detailed and precise. It takes the full measure of your particular life into account and works toward the specific wholeness that your particular life requires and was always designed for. So as you carry these words with you into the hours and days ahead, carry them not as general truth that applies to people in your situation, but as truth that applies to you personally. Every word spoken in this conversation about the love that restores all things was spoken to you. The promise of healing is for your specific body, or your specific heart, or your specific mind, whichever is the thing that most needs to hear it. The promise of relational restoration is for the specific relationship that came to your mind when that word was spoken. The promise of returning dreams is for the specific dream that has been in the specific drawer the longest. The promise of a table prepared for you is an invitation addressed to you, by name, to the specific seat at the table that no one else's presence can fill. You are loved specifically, restored specifically, called home specifically, and the love that is doing all of this will not stop until every specific thing in your specific life has been brought to the fullness that was always intended, not because you are perfect, not because you have earned it, because love, in its nature, does not do partial work. When love commits to a person, it commits fully, completely, to the end. And love committed to you before you were born, and that commitment has never wavered, and it will not waver. And everything broken in your life is being addressed by that commitment right now, with everything love has. That is the word for you today. That is the word that was waiting for you in this conversation. That is the truth that your specific life in its specific season, at its specific hour, needed to hear. You are loved. You are restored. You are coming home. And the love making all of this true is the strongest, most relentless, most beautiful, most thoroughly tested, most completely trustworthy love that has ever existed or ever will. It is yours. It has always been yours. And it is not going anywhere. We are arriving at something now. Feel it. The way a conversation builds toward its deepest point, the way each layer of what has been said adds to the weight of what is about to be said, the way a river, moving through all its various landscapes and turns and widths and changing speeds, eventually arrives at the place where it meets something larger than itself, and the two bodies of water become one. We have talked about what broke. We have looked honestly at the love that heals, and the reasons it heals, and the nature of its power. We have examined the process, the furnace and the gold and the cracks, the seeds in the ground and the garden coming. We have asked questions and sat with their answers. We have moved through the imagery of home and table and dawn light and ocean after storm. We have talked about forgiveness and about beginning again and about what is possible for relationships that seemed permanently closed. And now, right here, I want to say the thing that all of this has been moving toward. Your restoration has begun, not hypothetically, not contingent on future behavior that will finally earn the grace that has already been given, not scheduled to begin at some later point when the circumstances are more favorable, or when you have finally done enough preparatory work to merit the start of the process. It has already begun. It is already underway. The love that restores all things has been at work in the broken places of your life, through all the seasons you have been moving through, working in the unseen hours before you were awake, working in the space between your prayers when you were not speaking, and the silence felt empty, but was not empty, working in the difficult moments when it felt like nothing was happening and everything was staying the same, and the patience required was more than you felt you had. It has been working through all of that. It is working now. And what it has been building in the unseen places is beginning its emergence into what can be seen. Do you understand what that means for the way you hold this present moment, this very breath, this specific hour? The particular circumstances you are living in right now with all their messiness and incompleteness and uncertainty. This present moment is not a waiting room outside the place where your real life will eventually happen once everything is sorted out. This present moment is the active site of your restoration. Something is being healed in you right now as you receive this love. Something in the interior of you is softening that has been held hard for a long time. Something is warming that has been cold. Something is becoming possible that was not possible before you entered this conversation. The restoration is not coming eventually. It is here. It is happening. You are in the middle of it. And the middle of restoration, even when it does not feel like the end, is not nothing. The middle is the transformation. The middle is where the gold is being poured into the cracks. The love that is doing this work in you has a name. It is not an abstraction or a concept or a force that operates without a face. It is a person. It is I who spoke everything into being, and who spoke your name specifically before the world was made, who formed your inward parts with intention and care, who knit you together in a way that expressed something of my own character that only you can express in the way that you express it. No one else doing it the way you do it. No one else carrying what you carry, or seeing the way you see, or loving the way you love. I am the love that is restoring you. Not distant love watching your process from somewhere comfortably removed. Near love. Present love. A love that is, in this moment, as close to you as your own breathing. As close as the pulse in your chest that continues whether you think about it or not. As close as the thought that has been forming somewhere beneath the words of this message. The thought that perhaps you are not as alone as you have sometimes felt. A heart that has been wounded is healing in the presence of my love. Not because healing is easy, or because wounds close without effort, or because the pain is simply overridden by good feelings that replace the bad ones. But because the love that created the heart knows the heart in a way that makes genuine healing possible. The brokenness is real. The pain is real. The damage was real. And the healing is equally real, more real. Because love is more fundamental to the nature of things than damage is. Damage is an intrusion into a creation that was made for wholeness. Love is the original substance. It is the first language of the universe, and in that language, wholeness is the native word, and damage is the foreign one. My love is speaking the native language into every broken place in your life, and the broken places are hearing it, and they are responding. The dignity that you lost somewhere along the way, the sense of being someone who matters, of having a life worth living and a contribution worth making, the self-respect that eroded under the weight of accumulated failures and disappointments, and the internal narration that followed each one. That dignity is being restored to you. Not as a performance you have to maintain to keep it, as a recognition of what was always true. You have always been someone who matters. Your life has always been worth living. You have always been made in a love so specific that if you were not here, the world would have a specific absence that no other person could fill. The circumstances that obscured that truth did not change it. The moments when you believed the opposite, when you were most convinced that you were less than you appeared, did not make the opposite true. The truth about who you are is what I say it is. And I say, you are beloved, restored, complete in my love, whole in the only wholeness that lasts. What does it mean to remain in this love? The practical question. Because the experience of a moment like this, the feeling of being reached in a place you had closed off, the warmth of a love that does not require you to perform for it, these things can feel deeply real in the moment, and then somehow dissipate in the ordinary hours of an ordinary day, when the dishes need doing, and the difficult relationship is still difficult, and the dream is still uncertain, and nothing has visibly changed, and the practicalities of life are pressing in from all sides. How do you hold on to this in the dailiness of living? The answer is not that you hold on to it by strength of effort, or by the intensity of your morning discipline, or by the frequency of your prayers, or by any other form of spiritual maintenance that depends entirely on your consistent capacity to perform. The answer is simpler and less dependent on your consistency than that. You return to it. Every day, as many times as the day requires, you return to this place of being known and loved without conditions. You return not by manufacturing the feeling, but by the simple act of turning toward me. By acknowledging, in whatever words are honest and available to you, that you need the love that only I can give. By opening yourself, even slightly, even imperfectly, even on the days when opening yourself feels like more than you have the energy for, to the possibility that the restoration you received an awareness of in this moment is real and is ongoing and does not depend on your ability to feel it consistently to remain true. You return to the table. Every time you leave, you return. Every time the pressure of life, or the weight of your own failures, or the discouragement of circumstances that are slow to change, pushes you away from the sense of being at home with me, you turn around and come back. And the table is always set when you arrive. The place is always marked. The door always opens. There is no version of returning to me where you find the table cleared and the invitation withdrawn. The table is permanent. The invitation is permanent. The love is permanent. And the returning, each time you turn around and come back, is itself an act of faith that strengthens the very thing it is exercising. The people in your life who most need what you have been given in this season, the ones who are themselves broken in their own ways and do not yet know that restoration is available, are watching your life. They may not be doing so consciously, but people in pain are attentive to people around them who seem to be moving through difficulty with something real sustaining them. They are watching whether the love you speak about when the circumstances are favorable is the same love that holds you when the circumstances are not. They are watching whether there is something genuine behind the words, something that makes a visible difference in how you hold hard things, in the quality of peace that you carry in the absence of easy circumstances, in the way you treat other people even when you are the one who is most depleted, the way your restoration unfolds, the quiet courage with which you choose hope in difficult circumstances, the warmth that comes from someone who has been genuinely healed and not merely managed. That is a testimony that reaches people that arguments and information cannot reach. Your restored life is itself a word about the power of love to do what nothing else can do. Carry this with you. Let it go deep. Let the parts of you that have been holding tightly begin to release. Let the defended places soften just enough to let the warmth in. Let the abandoned dreams breathe again in the fresh air of renewed hope. Let the broken relationships receive the grace that makes new things possible. Let the wounds that have been managed from a careful distance be brought into the proximity of the love that genuinely heals them. Let your life be restored. Not because you have earned it, because love is what I am, and you are what I made. And those two truths together mean that your restoration is not in question. It is underway. It has been underway for longer than you know. And it will continue until the work is complete. And everything that was meant to be beautiful in your life is shining with the specific beauty that only love, working through suffering and grace in the particular geography of your particular story, can produce. The gold in your cracks is visible to me. The seeds in your ground are already stirring, already having made the turn from dormancy toward emergence. The dawn that is coming to your sky has already begun its first imperceptible lightning at the horizon, the kind that happens before most people are awake to see it. The table in your home has been set since before you came to sit at it. The door of your belonging is open. The place is marked with your name. And the love that is doing all of this, that is holding your specific, beautiful, broken, gold-threaded life in both hands with absolute care and absolute certainty about what it is making. That love is not running low and is not growing tired and is not wondering whether the project is worth continuing. It has already decided. Before the foundation of the world, it decided. It decided about you, specifically, personally, with full knowledge of everything your life would contain, the beautiful and the terrible, and everything between. It decided you are worth every cost of the restoration. And the love that makes decisions like that does not reverse them. Receive it, all of it, every word of this. The healing of your heart, the restoration of your relationships, the return of your dreams, the rebuilding of your dignity, the renewal of your trust in love and in life and in me, the coming of a future that is genuinely better than anything you lost. Receive it the way you receive the warmth of sunlight on your face by simply standing in the light, not by straining toward it, not by performing your worthiness of it, by being present in the presence of what is already here, already working, already more certain than anything that has frightened you. You are loved with a love that restores all things. Every broken piece of your life is known to that love. Every shattered place is receiving that love right now. Every dormant dream is being tended by that love with patience that does not count the days. Every fractured relationship that can be healed is being reached by that love with a persistence that does not get discouraged. Every wound that has been managed from a distance is being invited into the warmth of that love's genuine and complete healing. The love that created the universe and chose you within it before you had done anything to deserve choosing is the same love that is working in you right now. And it will not stop until every broken thing is whole, until every crack is filled with gold, until the house of your life is inhabited by the fullness of what it was designed to contain, until you are as fully home as love is capable of bringing you. Your restoration has already begun in the heart of an eternal love that has never, not for a single moment in all of history, stopped working on your behalf. And that love, right now, in this moment that is the only moment that exists, and the only moment that has ever fully been yours, says to you with everything it is, you are coming home. Amen. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. There is someone in your life carrying something heavy, someone who needs to know that restoration is real, and that the love doing this work is stronger than everything that broke. Share this with them. And if these words reached something deep in you, type Amen in the comments to receive this blessing. Your faith matters. It builds something real in the community gathering here to be reminded they are loved. We will see you again soon with another message from the heart of the love that restores all things.